Planning for retirement can be very stressful, and if your retirement plan includes buying a Powerball ticket every week, you're going to want to stay tuned to this week's episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast because we are talking about what drivers are doing with their money.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 106. I'm your host, Marcus, and of course, you knew that because I'm here every damn week. Podcast.liquidtrucking.com is the website. That's where you can go to find everything that has anything to do with this podcast. And you can also send your emails, all of your episode recommendations, your segment recommendations, or your general critique of the way I do things over to our email address, podcast@liquidtrucking.com. Or, of course, you can just hit me right in the pocket. Every driver that's been on this show's got that phone number. So we've cleared out some of the holidays. We've moved a little bit beyond Thanksgiving now. We've gotten our trucking up history out of the way. We've learned about some weird laws, and we had some space to fill here. Well, I got to be honest. I've had one driver tugging at my shirt sleeve for months now, actually. We had him on a while back to talk about some different... I think it was apps that he was using. Tim was playing with these apps and kind of finding a way to make a little bit of passive income within these apps. But he's going to talk to us about investment strategy that he uses. Now, important, I'm going to say this more than once today. We're not giving anybody investing advice. We wanted our two drivers to come on today and tell their story. Okay, that's as simple as it is. This is what these two guys do and how they're making it work. And hopefully you guys that are out there listening can learn something from it and maybe apply it to the way that you want to make it work. Because one thing about saving for retirement and having a secure financial future, if you will, it's largely a different equation for every individual. Maybe you don't want to be invested in something super volatile. Maybe you love the volatility. You are a Vegas kid like me, and you'll say, give me the over. Okay, it's different for everybody listening. And so rather than bring on a financial expert and go over all the ways that they think you should do it, I thought, well, let's talk to two guys that are relatively successful in their endeavors. They both work for Liquid Trucking just like you guys do. They're both out there pounding the pavement, putting miles behind them. And they've figured out something, and they're willing to actually come on and talk about it, which huge tip of the cap to these guys for even doing that. This is not something that you want to talk about. Like, this isn't Thanksgiving table discussion, right? Some people find discussion about financial security incredibly boring, and I understand. I am not a numbers guy. If you haven't figured out just by listening to this podcast, if it wasn't written down in front of me, I would not be able to get the episode number right each week. That's how bad I am with numbers. So I understand how sometimes this can be a little bit boring, but you start to figure out the cracks in the financial armor, and you start to try to repair those a little bit. It feels pretty good at the end of the month. The stress that comes along with financial straits can sort of dissipate a little bit. And if anything, that's what I'm hoping you guys can get out of the show today. Hear a couple of Liquid drivers talk about the way they're going about it, and just maybe there's a way that you could go about it in there as well. Or if nothing else, maybe you just learned something that you didn't already know about 401ks or Roth IRAs or Bitcoin or any of the other things that we're going to discuss here in just a few minutes with my two drivers joining me. I'm also going to take you through what not to do. And it's hard to get individual stories about what not to do. But what I do have are some of the most epic bad financial decisions that have ever been made by some of the biggest companies that could make them. And wow, it's fun because look, sometimes you take your lumps out there, right, where money's concerned. It's not every month that you look at the bank account and you're 100% satisfied with where that number sits. But these companies, and for the most part, these people making these decisions are not in that world. They're so far beyond it already. They're thinking about maybe second and third vacation homes. They're thinking about yachts for oceans. All right, bodies of water that you're not supposed to be on in a Ferrari-looking boat. Okay, so as you listen to Matt and Tim, who are going to join us here in just a second, understand that they're talking about this from the everyman standpoint. Okay, they're you and me. The stories I'm going to tell towards the end of the episode, they aren't you and me. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes it's hard not to enjoy hearing these stories a little bit. That's the only tease you're going to get about it. Epic bad financial decisions coming up after we talk to Liquid drivers Matt MacKellar and Tim Spencer about how they are trying to grow their money right now. All right, I hope you got your notepad ready here because I got a couple of Liquid Trucking Podcast vets that I'm bringing on now, and we're going to talk to them a little bit about what they're doing with their money. Now, that can be kind of a uncomfortable question if somebody just walks up to you in a Denny's when you're eating your moons over my hammy and says, "Hey, what are you doing with your money?" Well, right now I'm spending it on the moons of my hammy, and I'm telling you to mind your own business with the rest of it. However, these two gentlemen are coming in here today with open minds to talk a little bit about their strategies. Now, before we get into this at all, very important that I do say this on the air. This is not investing advice. This is a couple of dudes that work for Liquid Trucking coming in to talk to you a little bit about how they do it. If you're interested in it, reach out to them. Give them a call. Maybe they'll talk you through it a little bit. But again, just so that we're safe here, we don't want anybody to hear this and run out and, throw your life savings on black. It comes up red. All of a sudden, we're the bad guys. Now that that's off the table, let's bring in our drivers today. And joining us as actually the guy that brought this topic to the table is Liquid driver Tim Spencer. Tim, thank you for the suggestion. Glad we're finally able to make it happen. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much, man. We're glad to have you here. And also, another vet of the podcast joining us today is Matt MacKellar. Thanks for joining us today, Matt. I understand you're close to the Chicago area, so even though there's never any stress in your voice, I'm wondering if there might be some stress in your voice today.
Well, I lived in this area for a long time, so I'm pretty used to it. I'm in the area I like to call the armpit of Lake Michigan, right there, kind of southeast of Chicago, northern Indiana. So it's fun as always.
Okay, well, how's your weather up there?
We're getting the second bit of snow in a couple of days. 2 days ago, we got about 8 inches, and now we got another inch or two coming our way.
Okay, all right. Well, as always, be safe out there. Tim, where are you at and where are you headed today?
I'm headed down to the Barlow Yard. I just delivered in Dawson, Minnesota. So, yeah, there's a little bit of snow up here. The roads are, for the most part, they're all right, but there's a few slick spots here and there.
Sure. Well, I it's got to start somewhere, and it seems like this time of year it always starts up in Minnesota and Chicago first and kind of works its way down, man. I'm sure our friends up there in upstate New York, where my audio editor Mike is right now, is probably also a little bit snowy. Wouldn't surprise me. Hasn't hit us over here yet in the Pacific Northwest. It's actually kind of nice. But who cares about the weather? It's time for us to talk money a little bit here. Now, Tim, you, as I said earlier, you're the one that suggested this, and I know that you've got kind of a bevy of different things that you're getting into. Last time we talked, you were messing around with some apps on your phone, ways to make yourself a little bit of passive income doing that. Talk us through what you're up to, man. What have you been donating your time and trying to grow your money with lately?
Grow my money with? Right now, I am out of the Bitcoin space. I came up with a 5-year plan, and basically my first year was playing with the whole Bitcoin thing, and then I went strictly Dave Ramsey, and then started basically working on his snowball method. I've got all my credit card debt paid off, my cars, paid off, and right now, as far as investing money, you got your normal 401k and the Roth 401k, but that's about it right now.
And was the decision to get out of the Bitcoin space, was that market related? Because I know things have been a little bit volatile here towards the end of the year in the crypto space. You know, I don't have a lot of money invested in it. And when I say I don't have a lot, I'm talking like, you know, a couple $100. Like it's really, it was a Vegas gambling night is all I've put into it because I just don't know enough about it. But I do follow a lot of forums, Tim, where people talk about it. And all I've seen over the past, I don't know, call it 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, has just been people panicking. Should I pull out? Should I buy more? What's going on? You know, and of course you've got the people screaming, buy the dip, and you've got the people saying, get out while you still can. Was the reason that you jumped out just because of your 5-year plan, or did you kind of see the volatility and say, I'm not really into it?
No. So what I did in 2022, 2023 is I dollar cost averaged my way in. There's always been a 4-year cycle. So I think my average price of Bitcoin that I paid was $22,000. That was the price of Bitcoin. That was my average. And then it's 3 years up. On the third year, starting this last January, I started dollar cost averaging my way out as it was going up. I think it went to 100,000. It dipped down to like 70, and then it went up to 126. So I've got sell orders. I paused when it took a big dip, and then I just kind of slowly dollar cost averaged my way up. I think my last sell order was at 117,000. So
wow.
In Bitcoin alone, I how much should I put in there? I think on that one I only put in about $5,000, and then it went up about 7x from there. And then I had another one that I got out on. I put $250. It was some no-name AI coin, and I put $250 into it, and it went up to I think like $14,000.
Wow!
But if you look at that now, it actually doesn't exactly follow the same cycle. So that one actually topped long before Bitcoin did, and now it's just like all the other coins that go down to zero.
Yep, I hear you. Well, I got to say, man, great work with getting in where you got in. I mean, even right now, after a 4, almost 5% drop just today, Bitcoin is sitting at 86,400 per coin right now. So to get out at 117,000, you made some really well-timed decisions with your Bitcoin is what I'm seeing here. And I wonder how much research do you put into looking at those 4-year cycles, and really was this, because a lot of people would tell you when I buy Bitcoin, I'm just gambling. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I've got some of it and I'm going to hold it and I hope, but they've got no knowledge built around this purchase. It is just a table game for them. It's just Vegas. You sound like you researched it quite a bit more. Were you surprised by anything that happened, or was this kind of what you expected, Tim?
This was exactly what I expected. I actually I run an email service. I've got a few people that I basically send all my emails to, telling them, hey, this is, how we did the cycle. This is where we're getting out, just basically the whole thing. So, I don't know, those emails started the beginning of this year when I started selling. And it's like, don't buy any more. Just keep selling. Don't, it's kind of a risky time in the market once January started.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well, then I'll pat you on the back and say congratulations, man. Great work, because, there's for every one story like that it works out and the research pays off, there's probably 100 guys that are filling out job applications, right?
I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2015, and so I've kind of, I did a lot of research, and I used to help run a Bitcoin meetup group, and we would teach people all the nuts and bolts of how it worked. We didn't give investment advice. We just, how do wallets work? How does the system distribute money? That kind of thing. And then I got into trading and learning how to trade.
Okay, I gotcha. So here's something that it's a little niche, and Matt, I appreciate your patience. I'm going to come to you here in just a second. You guys kind of are working on a little bit different strategies here, so forgive me for kind of compartmentalizing, but one more thing I want to ask you, Tim, before we get over to kind of what Matt's getting into. These little Bitcoin miners have been very popular on my Facebook timeline, which is weird because I am not clicking on them. They've just all of a sudden, I've seen a lot of advertisements for these little things that you plug in and you just let them go. They're advertising that they cost like 11 cents a month on the power bill, but essentially they try to mine a Bitcoin every single day or multiple times a day. I don't know. I already hear you laughing, and I'm wondering, because, of course, you go to their website. In fact, I just pulled one up here while I was talking about it, and, they have a list of people that have been successful with this, but at the same time, they'll tell you this is probably longer odds than buying a Powerball ticket that you're actually going to be successful. Can you explain any of this to me since you understand how it works? Because if it's a $58 lottery ticket that I can buy from Walmart and plug in and forget about, and in 15 years I come back and I've got a Bitcoin, I mean, that seems like a pretty good risk to take. It's only $50, but am I just giving $50 to somebody to go put someplace else? That's the question.
Well, I started a mining warehouse, so I kind of understand how all this stuff works.
Yep.
But no, if someone's advertising, plug this little device in and make Bitcoin processing power has become so intense that these little tiny, you used to be able to mine off a USB drive.
Mm-hmm.
And now it takes what's called an ASIC. And they take about 2,400 watts of power 24/7. And these little ones, you're not going to get anything. You're going to get fractions and fractions of a cent. If they even work, you're giving $50 out for nothing.
Okay, see, that's why I asked you.
Wintertime, though, I have heard of these miners that they've put into heaters, and so you run your little miner in your space heater for your house, and then you're making money. It's not a lot, but it's better than zero.
Interesting. Okay, well, you know what? I might have to call you up and pick your brain on this on your day off sometime because it is interesting to me. However, I talk to me about your mining warehouse. Like how many Bitcoin miners did you have going or do you have going right now?
Well, there was I had a bunch of investors and stuff, so I don't exactly want to go into the details of
that's fine
of how many. However, when the electrical company came to check their meter, they thought their meter was broke because it was spinning so fast.
Well, you must have been honest with them, man. You're a better man than me. I'd have walked out there and said, yeah, it's your meter. It's busted. You guys need to do something. Oh, man.
Yeah. And we ended up shutting it down because the electrical company, Alliant Energy, where I live, they're like, oh, these are our rates. I think they were quoting us like 9-10 cents per kilowatt hour. But by the time we got the bill, it was double that. And the other investors and myself, it's like, it's not worth it. Had we stuck with it, though, in the long run, I think Bitcoin was at like 17,000, dropped all the way down to 3,000. Had we just held on to it, paid the electric bill, we would have been ahead, but it would have taken us a lot longer to get ahead.
Sure.
And nobody liked that.
Yeah, sure. It's kind of more of a long-term thing. I get that. All right. Well, I appreciate that. That's a lot of good info from you, Tim, and we'll come back to you too, I'm sure, because I'll have more questions that arise after we kind of learn a little bit about what Matt's doing. Because Matt, you told me when we set up the interview here that you've got a pretty aggressive strategy yourself, and we've talked about it on this show many times. You live out of the cab of your truck, so you've got no like rent or mortgage payment hanging over your head every day, or at least that's kind of what I'm led to believe. But talk me through a little bit about what you're doing, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. I like Dave Ramsey. It's good for debt pay down. I paid off a bunch of student loans that I had. And now I am in saving and investing probably at least 60% of my income, probably pushing towards 70 or something like that. Because like you said, I don't have a rent or mortgage, don't have a car payment, any of that kind of stuff. And my hope is to retire early in about 10 or 12 years or something like that. So just kind of hit it hard. And I follow a movement called the Financial Independence Retire Early, the FIRE movement, they call it, which is a whole thing, but kind of that idea of saving up enough money that then you can just withdraw a certain percentage of your investments every year and live off of that. And then the market should grow enough on average per year to replace what you've pulled out each year and allow you to live off of that indefinitely, if that makes sense. So what I'm doing is definitely kind of the opposite end of the spectrum from Tim there, and maybe he's doing more conventional investments. He mentioned 401k and all that. But for me, I'm maxing out my 401k, which is like $23,000 a year. Maxing out, I have a Roth IRA, which is I think $6,500 this year. I'm going up to $7,000 next year. And then I have a brokerage account, that I'm putting money in as well. And for me, where it's opposite from like Bitcoin or anything, where that's exciting, I'm totally boring in terms of investing. So what I invest in primarily are what you call total stock market index funds that literally buy a slice of every stock in the U.S. stock market, or you can get them for the international stock market. So for instance, in our 401k, we have available a fund called BTSAX, and that's an index fund that buys every major U.S. stock. It's like 3,200 different stocks in everything that you buy. So you're not trying to pick the winners. You're just investing in the U.S. economy as a whole. And a lot of research shows that on average, there's ups and downs, of course, but on average, the U.S. stock market tends to return about 8% a year. So
sure.
I can go into detail, but that's the broad brushstrokes of what I'm doing.
No, I think that's awesome. That's a really good. And let me ask you the one question real quick, Tim. I'll come to you in just a second, but I got to ask Matt, during political climates like what we've had for the past year or so, do you get a little clinchy in the shorts gambling on the overall success of the American stock market? I know, like you said, it ebbs and flows, but I keep hearing about all this stuff. Like, people keep referencing the housing crash of 2008. I just saw that housing prices in Oregon over the last 10 years are up nearly 800%. So are you nervous at all about the volatility, or are you happy with the security that you get in these total market index funds?
Yeah, no, not nervous. In fact, volatility can be good as long as you have enough of a timeline. Because Tim referenced dollar cost averaging before, which is when you either buy or sell regularly. So you're not trying to wait for it to be high or low or time the market. You're just buying regularly. And that's what I do. Like every week I put money in the stock market, and some weeks it's up, some weeks it's down. And the way to think about it is I don't need that money right now. And so if it's up, that's great. I've made money. If it's down, then basically everything's on sale. I can get, another share of everything for cheap. Yep. And then historically over time, it'll go up, and the market does weird things. Like there's been so much concern, but actually the stock market's done extremely well this year. And then as you get closer to retirement and needing to pull out some money, there are some strategies, some different types of portfolios that you can move to that are a little bit more stable and have a pretty safe withdrawal rate where they're going to replenish themselves, like I was talking about before. So no, the volatility is actually good on some level.
Okay. And Tim, what were you going to say there? I had you hold that thought for a second.
No, what he is doing is what you should be doing. Like if you're maxing out your 401k, if you can max it out, you should at least be matching, right? And then the Roth, you should be maxing out the Roth before you even get into the Bitcoin thing. And you shouldn't even be investing unless your debt is paid off.
Is right? What we would tell you if we were going to give you investing advice, but. You're. What? I just want to rephrase
what I'm doing. What I'm doing is a niche, and a lot of people have gotten hurt by it.
Yep.
They saw the top at 20, they bought it, went down to 3,000, they sold. That happens all the time. So if you don't know what you're doing, stay with the traditional stuff.
Yeah, and take it from a guy like me who I feel like I know just enough about the side of it that you were talking about, Tim, and the cryptos, and I know just enough about it to lose my entire life savings on it. And that's probably speaks for 95% of people out there. And I might suggest, if I was going to give some type of advice, which I am not, this is just an anecdote from my own adventures. If you're really feeling the itch, they got some great penny cryptos out there. I bought Dogecoin like 5 years ago when it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 cents is when I first got in. And it ain't much now. It's 17, but it's peaked up around like 30 something at some point in time. And, I wasn't paying attention that day, so I didn't reap any of those rewards. But what I'm telling you is, if you want to get an eye for it and figure it out what it feels like to watch it go up and down and whether or not that's something you even want to put yourself through, try it. Try those penny slots. I know penny stocks is what I mean to say, but I'll call them penny slots because there is a bit of a gamble to it, unlike what Matt's doing, right, Tim?
Right, exactly, and it's very volatile. And if I was giving advice to somebody that came to me, Bitcoin would not be my first go-to. No.
Right, and that's most of the people I've talked to. I got in touch with a financial advisor a couple years ago, and we were talking to him about just kind of a future plan for the wife and I. And of course, you get with them 4 years ago. I think that was about what it was, maybe 4 or 5 years. I feel like it was during COVID that we were up here talking to him in my office. And what I realized is that everything's changed. So obviously you got to approach this from your own lens and what you're doing for your life. But his advice, and he was a financial professional, so I can call this true to form advice, was the 401k and the Roth as well. And those index funds, if you were to just go and type into ChatGPT, hey, what's a super safe investment for me so I can start saving for retirement? They're going to point you right towards the 401k and the Roth IRA, right, Matt?
Yeah. So the Roth IRA and the 401k are basically your vehicles, like places where you put money, and then you still have to make decisions about what you invest in within those. You could actually, within an IRA, you can buy Bitcoin now. So if you're looking for something safe, then look for those kind of things like index funds, total stock market, index funds, that kind of thing.
Yep. Vanguard. I went ahead and went over to Investopedia, and I just searched the top total market investment funds. Vanguard, Schwab, BlackRock, and Wilshire. It does not surprise me to see BlackRock up there because it feels like they're buying just about everything right now. So yeah, there you go. It's kind of a It's interesting, too, because I'm sitting here looking at some of the stats, and it's like Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, minimum investment, $3 million. It's like, okay, well.
This is why Bitcoin has dropped dramatically. BlackRock just sold 30,000 coins.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So they're in buying and selling. They're buying up all the residential property and selling their crypto. That's
actually not correct. They're not buying all the residential. The buying is that's 1% of the market that they actually buy housing. And the majority of that is things like condos, apartments, that kind of thing. They're not
multifamily stuff
from underneath people. Right.
Yeah, multifamily stuff. No, and really more than anything, I was just making the joke, but you are right. They are huge in that multifamily space. Which, let's be honest, that takes a lot to get into in the first place. Like, if you don't have, a few $100,000, you might not be in the market to buy yourself an apartment complex. I don't know. It's that I don't live in that world, so I'm not sure what kind of fundage that would take. But let me ask you this, guys, from the standpoint of your benefits, because I know that Liquid offers a benefits package for you drivers, and without knowing 100% what it is. Let me ask you from that side, Matt, I'll start with you here. Do you do any of this retirement planning through any benefits package that Liquid offers you, or are you doing this all independently of anything that Liquid offers in their package, Matt?
I think they do offer some counseling and that kind of stuff, but no, I do it independent and I do my research. And I would say one thing, just a little tip were to be advice, or what I would do and not do, is if you are using like a financial consultant or something, make sure that they're fee based and that they don't try to do a percentage of assets under management, because then they're just taking money away. And one of the big points I want to emphasize is that fees will really eat into your returns over time, whether that's from financial advisors or the expense ratios on different index funds or ETFs. Just to give you a quick example, I set this up actually on ChatGPT earlier. Pretty good for running numbers. You always want to double check them. But say you're investing $10,000 a year in your 401k, and you do that for 30 years. That's $300,000. Well, we have one set of funds that are called target date funds, and we can talk about those. That's where they kind of like a whole grab bag, and they mix stocks and bonds for you, and then they shift it more towards bonds as you age. There's some critiques about that, but the expense ratio on that is 0.36%. This VTSAX, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, is 0.04. So you got 0.36 and 0.04. So 1/9 the fees. Now, over that 30-year timeline that I was just talking about, the difference in the end, you're going to pay $50,000 more in fees to that 0.36 target date fund than you would with a low cost index fund like VTSAX. So that's something to very much keep in mind, is look at those fees. And I just wanted to mention, because you mentioned about buying into like Vanguard Total Stock Market, all of the platforms allow you to do what they call fractional shares. If you got $100 to throw at it, you can throw $100 at it and it'll buy you a third of a share or whatever it is that's able to purchase. So you can really invest your money.
Sure. Okay, yeah, and as I'm scrolling down here, it seems like a lot of these total stock market indexes have that same or something similar for an expense ratio. Schwab's is 0.03. So
Yep.
Definitely important numbers to pay attention to if you're really trying to meet a goal and you want to be at or beyond that dollar amount by X year. You got to take those fees into consideration.
Yeah, I would say now in today's day and age, there's no reason to have any fund that's over 0.10 of an expense ratio. Because it used to be that they all had to be actively managed, meaning that some financial guru is running the fund. Now in the era of computers, they just track these computers just track these indexes. And so there's no reason to pay those kind of fees, and you're just bleeding off money. And the difference is not only are you paying that fee this year, but now say you're investing for 30 years, that money is now no longer in your account for the next 30 years to compound. And the compounding is where the magic's at, because you make money on money, and then you make money on the money that you made off the money, and it all just kind of snowballs from there. So that's where fees can really make a disproportionate impact over time, is worth keeping in mind.
Sure. As far as how do I want to put this here? Risk is obviously a very important part of this. We've already talked about it, Tim. We've said, hey, there's a certain aspect of this that is kind of gambling, but there is a lot of research that you can put into it. I'm wondering if either one of you guys have had a moment where, holy crap, that was a really bad decision. Because later on in the episode, once I'm done talking to you guys, I'm going to take all of our listeners through some of the worst financial decisions ever made by people in the world. That's as basic as I can put it. But Tim, was there ever a time when you made a mistake and it cost you big, or you have a cautionary tale or anything like that out of this investing world that you've been in for quite some time now? I mean, you said you bought into Bitcoin in 2015, so this is old hat for you. Any tales that you want to tell about getting burnt?
Man, I wouldn't say that I've ever gotten burnt, but the whole mining warehouse, myself, my investment was $40,000, but I made all that money in the crypto space, but now it's gone because we shut down, we put in a lot of electricity work, we put in, so really that was my biggest downfall. But besides that, which honestly, if I only put in a few $100s, it's not a loss, but it's a potential loss of the money I could have had. But really your biggest loss is is buying like a brand new vehicle, or not paying off your credit cards and paying 30% into interest.
Yeah,
That's what kills you.
that's a huge one, and a lot of people don't realize it. But man, if you can get that balance paid down before that bill clears, it makes such a huge difference at the end of the month.
Absolutely.
Good advice there. How about you, Matt? When getting into this, obviously you guys both have told me here that you've done extensive research, and I think if anything, if you take anything away from this conversation, take that away, that we can tell you everything about all the anecdotal things that have happened to the three of us, and it could mean absolutely nothing to you because of the way this stuff goes. But Matt, any cautionary tales from you? Anything that didn't go the way you expected it to once you really started getting serious about this?
Yeah, like I said, what I do is really boring. And so I've really had no issues or problems. Things go up and down, but I'm not looking at that money for a while yet, and it'll build over time. I would say the only mistakes are some of what you guys have been talking about, like don't get into debt. That'll kill you, especially credit card debt. And then when I was young, like when I was in my early 20s, I had like my first actual like salary job, and they gave me some money into an IRA as part of that. And at some point, money got tight, so I pulled the money out of that. I paid the penalties, and it would have been so much better. I mean, that was like going on, 25 years ago. If I had just left that money in there and added to it to grow, it would have made such a difference. I've been talking to my daughter about this, who's 21, that time is your best friend. And I gave her the example that if you put just $2,000 in an IRA every year for the next 40 years, and because she's 20, like given average stock market returns, you'll end up with between $600,000 and $800,000 on average. Which may not be enough to live off of at that point, but it's not a bad little chunk of change for your retirement.
Sure, it's not nothing. Did her eyes turn into dollar signs when you told her that? Because that seems like a cheat code at 21, right?
Yeah, she was impressed. But then she also mentioned that her high school anatomy teacher pulled up his IRA app, whether it's Fidelity or whatever, during class and like talked to them about the same exact principle, being like, start investing now. Put your part-time high school job money in an IRA, at least some of it, because compounding is the what do they call it? The eighth wonder of the world, Warren Buffett called it.
Yep. That's fun. I'm surprised he didn't have the, you said it was her anatomy teacher. I would want him to have the diagram of the human anatomy right there next to it so he could say, if you don't do this, and then he could point at the stomach. He said, you're going to have a lot of pain down here later and a lot of pain up here in the head later in your life, because that's what it is, man. Financial stress is no joke, and that's why I think this is a cool subject to talk about, and especially to get two drivers in here that are real world liquid drivers, guys that are out there working hard just like the rest of you that are listening, and talk through some of the stuff that you do, because we're all going to get too old to do it one of these days. Well, you guys will. I will probably be doing this in a retirement home where they have me talking to a wall by the time I'm old enough to stop. But I'm glad that you guys are willing to come on here and actually discuss this stuff, because not everybody wants to be super open about it. And I know that there's some things that you guys probably didn't discuss, and I'm fine with that. But just it means a lot that you guys would come in here and have this conversation with me today. And want to go ahead and make some room for some final thoughts here. As always, we give our guests that come on the show a chance to say anything and everything that they want to say, anything that we didn't talk about, any shout outs that they want to give to anybody that might be listening. And you can take as much time as you need for this. So, Tim, thank you again, man. Thank you for suggesting the topic. I will get you your Drive for Gold points for bringing us the topic that we made into an entire episode. Final thoughts from you today, my friend, before we let you go.
I think the best thing you can do for yourself, and it'll open so many avenues, is to have your debt paid off and have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. You have that, you can invest all day long. That's honestly the best advice I can give anybody.
And maybe I might add to that, since both of you guys mentioned it, and Tim, you mentioned it, first off there, that Dave Ramsey snowball plan thing isn't a bad thing. I've seen a lot of people get out of debt and just start the process to get to where they can actually put money away using that technique.
You can use the avalanche method. You can use, which doesn't work nearly as well as the snowball effect, where you pay off your lowest debt first, and then your second debt, the payments you were paying on that, you put on that, and then it kind of just snowballs its way up. Avalanche mathematically is correct, but money is always a mental problem and not just a math.
Right. Mitigating factor. You never know when those medical bills are going to come up and you're not going to be able to make that, or maybe it's a car payment. I mean, hey, my wife's car just didn't start out in the driveway a few weeks ago, and $2,400 later, it works fine. But that made a dent in, if any type of aggressive saving or debt paying off we're doing. We didn't see that coming, but it definitely changed things at the end of the month. So what you're talking about with the 3 to 6 month emergency fund and paying off the debt and stuff, it all kind of is pointing towards the same thing, isn't it, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. And, there's a certain percentage of things that will make your life better. Like, I think your vehicles aren't supposed to be worth more than 50% of your annual take home. If you have a mortgage, you don't want it to be any more than 25 to 30%, because there is a difference between owning a home and a home owning you.
Yep.
Or same thing with a car and vehicle.
Yep. Great stuff there, Tim. Thanks again, man. Always appreciate the time. Matt, same to you. Thank you for coming in here and talking about this stuff. Again, not always the easiest thing to share about, but you guys were great today. Final thoughts from you today, Matt, before we let you get back to work.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Just two quick categories, I'll say. One, there's a ton of resources out there, whether it's websites or blogs or podcasts about investing or books. There's also, I use a budgeting app called You Need a Budget, YNAB. That's excellent. There's a website called Undebt It, where you can put in all your debts and then, like Tim's saying, tell it you want to do the snowball or the avalanche method. It'll tell you how much you should be putting towards each debt each month. So there's a ton of resources out there. That's the first thing I want to say. Make use of those. Do your research. The second thing, and Tim mentioned this earlier too, about the company match. Basically, our company policy is they will match 50% anything you put in your 401k up to 5%. So basically, if you invest at least 5% of your income, they will match that with 2.5%. So basically, it's like, do you want a 2.5% raise? Put at least 5% of your check into your 401k, which you should be doing anyways, probably, and you automatically get a 2.5% raise, essentially.
There you go. And that's available for everybody that's working at Liquid, right?
Yes.
Or I'll say that's available for drivers. I'm not sure about the benefits packages, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but that is what the drivers have access to. So, and listen, like Matt said, the resources are there. If you've got questions about your 401k, look, open enrollment, that type of stuff, it's the end of the year. It's all going to come around here. The questions are going to be getting asked and answered. Now's the time for it. So Matt and Tim, you guys were awesome today. Thank you both so much for being here. We'll be right back with more Liquid Trucking Podcast right after this. Great stuff there from Matt and Tim. And to remind you guys, Tim will be going home with extra Drive for Gold points on this week because he suggested this topic to us. And I'm always accepting those. Once again, we say it off the top every single day, but you can send in your segment or topic recommendations, podcast@liquidtrucking.com, or of course, text me, call me, send me a carrier pigeon. I'm down for any kind of communication. That's really all I do every day. Okay, so we've heard about a couple of drivers finding success in the way that they've decided to work their investments, and I think that was a really cool conversation, a lot more in-depth than I thought it was going to be, and I greatly appreciate Tim and Matt for coming on to share that stuff. Now let's talk about when it doesn't go so good. And it has not been going so good for so much longer than you guys might think that it hasn't been going good. All right, we can all look back to financial crashes in recent memory, right? We mentioned it in the interview, the 2008 housing bubble. They made the Big Short about it. There was a whole thing. There's a few companies in there. Enron rings some bells, right? But you wouldn't think like this type of stuff was going down in the 1600s, or would you? Let me tell you about Dutch tulip mania, which took place between 1636 and 1637. Tulip bulbs became a status symbol in the Netherlands back in the early 1600s, and then something bizarre happened. People didn't just like tulips, they began speculating on tulip futures contracts. So, yeah, the puts and the what are they, the calls and the puts, like that's future, right? That means that you can either bet that it's going to be $6 by November 5th. And if it is $6 by November 5th, then you get to sell it, or you get to buy at that price, even though it went up. Let's say you're short selling, right? So that's the Big Short. That's the whole thing. Is they put in a short interest on the housing bubble, I think, and it popped, and everybody was left holding the bag because the people that were short, they made all the money, and they made just ungodly amounts of money. Okay. Terrible description from me, but I'm just trying to bring you up to speed here with what the hell the Dutch were doing in the 1600s. The rarest tulip bulbs were selling for the price of a luxury townhouse in Amsterdam, multiple years of wages, or entire businesses. Some bulbs were said to cost more than 10 years of income for a skilled artisan. It got so insane that bulbs were traded in taverns. Drunk men pledged their homes as collateral. Merchants traded livestock for bulbs, and people bought bulbs they never physically touched. These are flowers, people. Then in a matter of weeks, the market collapsed. What do we expect? Imagine telling your wife, like, hey, we don't own the house anymore, but I do own a very pristine 6x7 vegetable garden that I've planted 4 tulip plants in, and if the ice freeze doesn't get too bad, we might actually get to see them next year. Short-term hype is not a plan. That's what you can learn from this, okay? If it were a plan, then I would have been rich on all the Jinko jeans that I bought back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Short-term hype, man. You didn't need pants that big. You didn't need pockets that deep. And why do you have that chain hanging off of your wallet? Number 2, let's move forward in history quite a bit to 1999-2000. .com craze much? Yeah, I think so. Pets.com is actually who we're going to talk about now. This is the single most symbolic failure of the .com boom. At least that's what it's been called. Pets.com raised hundreds of millions of dollars selling pet food online, which is a great idea. But they were selling 40-pound bags of dog food below cost while paying Super Bowl commercial rates. That's right, Pets.com. If you remember back to some of those late 90s, early 2000s Super Bowls, Pets.com was one of those .com websites that we all saw that were advertised so aggressively. They burned money like they were trying to heat the moon. The company went public February of 2000. By November of 2000, just, 9 months later, bankrupt. 9 months. That's all it took. Investors lost everything. Even the sock puppet mascot became more famous than their business model. They didn't sell dog food. They sold investors the belief that dogs would want them to sell dog food. And to just kind of tie this in here, most drivers don't chase moonshot startups. They accumulate steady, tangible growth over time. It's boring. It's like Matt and Tim said. Don't look at it every day if you want to get excited about it. If you want to hate it, look at it every day. How about this one? And this one hits close to home, okay? Blockbuster rejected Netflix's deal for $50 million. This is also in the year 2000. A lot of crazy stuff was going on back then. In 2000, Netflix was a tiny DVD by mail service losing money. The founders offered Blockbuster a buyout deal of $50 million. The Blockbuster executives laughed Netflix out of the building. They said, we're good. We don't need it. Fast forward to 2025, Netflix is worth around $180 billion. That's billion with a B. And Blockbuster is dead. Well, not all the way dead. There is one Blockbuster remaining. It is in Bend, Oregon, just over the Cascade Mountains from where I'm sitting right now. I will tell you, if you have not seen it, there is a fantastic documentary. It is called The Last Blockbuster. It was made by a man named Taylor Morden, who I am personal friends with, and I think it is a fantastic representation of the nostalgia that all of us used to know about Blockbuster because we're now all in the Netflix generation. But 3,600 times the original asking price is what Netflix is worth now. Or in trucking terms, the difference between a rusty Freightliner and a moon base made of diamonds. Imagine passing on a lottery ticket because the numbers looked cocky, right? Like, you think little DVD by mail service is going to do good? This is Blockbuster, okay? 25 years later, people got to fly across the country if they want to go to a Blockbuster. So maybe not the best decision ever. But they get worse. How about the Beanie Baby financial apocalypse from 1997 through 2001? Beanie Babies were the little, 2-3 inch tall stuffed plushy toys, and they started to do like kind of licensing deals and, one-offs and special events and things like that. For a few years in the late 90s, Americans became convinced they were actually investment assets. And I say Americans, my grandmother had a full set of Beanie Babies. And I will say this, we all kept some nostalgia, from a nostalgia standpoint when she passed away. And unfortunately, God rest her soul, those Beanie Babies were not worth anything. People bought them by the truckload, though, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They maxed out their credit cards. Families had garages and storage units filled. They insured them. They fought over them on QVC, which, man, I wish the internet was a little bit more mature back then, because some of these clips of these people fighting over stuffed animals on QVC would be enshrined in the Internet Never Forgets Hall of Fame. People believe these toys would pay for college tuition and retirement, and then what do you think happened? The bubble popped. Millions and millions of dollars worth of stuffed animals became absolutely worthless. They now sit in bins at every single secondhand store in America. You made a poor financial decision when raccoons get more value from your assets than you do. Look, I think drivers understand value a little bit differently than these people that would chase this kind of hype. Fuel efficiency, savings consistency, maintenance costs, retirement math. Stuffed pelicans? No. Okay? There's just better ways. And look, I get it. It was exciting. Everybody had Beanie Babies. They were cool. I just, thinking that you're going to pay your way through Harvard because you got 8 boxes of stuffed animals in the garage. I mean, it's 2025 levels of delusion that happened all the way back in 2000. Imagine that. And the last one for us today, actually, I think we've got room for a couple more. We're going to go ahead and stretch this thing out. But this one might be my favorite because of how painfully and tragically ironic it is. Let's be serious. I like to have fun on here. I like to make a joke. This one, the joke is not necessarily how it ended, okay? Let's talk about Segway. You guys remember the Segway prediction failure, right? This one actually went on until very recently. 2001 was the first time we ever heard of Segway. This all wrapped up here back in the COVID year of 2020. Now, when the Segway launched, investors, analysts, academics, and billionaires proclaimed it would change human transportation forever. Cities will redesign around Segways, they said, and cars will become obsolete. To take a page out of Lee Corso's book, not so fast, my friend. If you Google real newspaper headlines from the time about Segways, they're crazy. Here's some that we've put up, here's some things that people did with these, okay? So it's like mall cops became just Segway ridden. I mean, Paul Blart Mall Cop, like a lot of the comedy in that is that he's cruising around on a Segway, and Kevin James is just a phenomenal physical comedian. Zoo employees were zipping around on these things. Tourists with zero fear of humiliation. I got to be honest, man. I see these Lime scooters out everywhere whenever I go to a big metropolitan city, and it's like, it's cool, But it's also like, man, I don't want to be seen on one of those things. You're riding around in a different city. You don't know what the sidewalks are like. One 1-inch mistake in laying a sidewalk could put you in traction riding either on a Segway or on one of these rental scooters. So, not for me. All right, that's all I'll say. I'll get around on these Lamborghinis, man. That's really all I need. Sales were pitiful, though, getting back to what was going on with Segway. The company shuttered production in 2020. Investors got absolutely crushed. And to top this off, as tragically as humanly possible, the inventor of the Segway died while trail riding on one of his inventions. So just, nothing really worked out there with Segway. And you still see them around every now and then. They're still really goofy. I mean, revolutionize American transportation? I don't think so, man. I really don't think so. I would rather be cruising around on a set of Heelys than a Segway. You guys know what Heelys are, right? Heelys are those shoes that have the one wheel in the bottom so you can be walking and then skating. Oh, it was too late for me, man. It came around when I was already in high school. I would have got crucified, but I'll tell you what, as a 40-year-old man, if I had a set of Heelys show up under the Christmas tree, I wouldn't be upset about it, okay? They don't make them in my size. I've already checked. Let's talk about the Lehman Brothers collapse. This was 2008. You guys know some crazy stuff went down in 2008, but Lehman Brothers was founded in 1850. They were a massive global financial institution that collapsed in spectacular fashion in 2008 due to overexposure to risky mortgage debt, absurd leveraging, overconfidence, and misrated risk. This is all the stuff that the movie The Big Short is about. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it, man. Steve Carell, God damn it, I can't remember the other guy's name, but they just do such Christian Bale. Thank you. Nobody. There's not even anybody in this room. Who am I saying thank you to? That's the guy. Great movie. But all of this meant that with all of the absurd leveraging, they had all this money in these mortgages that were just terrible and they were never going to get paid off and they were going to default. They lost $600 billion. Okay, $600 billion just poof, right into Michael Burry's pocket. I mean, just anybody that had the short interest won, and these banks lost, man. And look, a lot of people lost. So many different people lost. The 2008 financial crisis, if you go back and you actually look at the numbers about, look at mortality rates right after that. Like, for the next couple of years after that, look at the mortality rates. I guarantee you mortality rates in the United States after 2008 spiked because financial stress, man, it's a bad one, okay? Risk exists in every market, though. We talked about it with Tim. We talked about it with Matt. They're both in completely different sides of the way that they've chosen to invest. And the one thing that both of them said was, hey, the low-risk option is always the good option to go with, especially if you're just starting out. Pay down your debt and get some money into that 401k. Get some money into that Roth IRA. Make some good, sound decisions within those, and that money can turn into more money over the years. However, if you turn it into $600 billion from 1850 to 2008, my recommendation, and this is not financial advice, would be don't put all of that behind risky mortgage bonds. It didn't work in 2008. Probably not going to work again into the future. Won't matter for Lehman Brothers. And finally, this last one here, Kodak has invented the digital camera. The world is changing, but then they ignored it. From 1975 onward, believe it or not. Kodak's own engineer invented the very first digital camera all the way back in 1975. Now, I was born in 1984. I didn't have a digital camera until high school, college years, right? That's because Kodak executives buried the technology. They believed film would last forever, which, hey, it's analog. It probably will in a sense, but that doesn't mean that there's not something to be said for the digital one, right? Kodak was really afraid, though, that digital sales would eat into their film sales, and they were right. So they just ignored the technology. However, the world did not ignore it. Kodak eventually filed bankruptcy in 2012. This is like inventing pizza and saying, no thanks, bread with sauce and cheese is a fad. I'm not into it. The innovation doesn't wait, ever. And I think you guys as drivers probably understand that better than anybody, man. What did the cab of the truck look like 6 years ago? What's it look like today? Few more buttons, few more bells and whistles in that thing. Yeah, I would expect so. So there you have it. 7 of the worst financial decisions ever made. I gotta say, even though that Lehman Brothers collapse was probably the biggest one, $600 billion just poof into dust. Blockbuster, man, I love you. You and I spent so many nights together. You know, college in the dorms, the date nights. You know, my wife and I. Well, it was a Hollywood video because it was a smaller town, but we used to go. That was like a date night for us. Get some popcorn, rent a damn movie that we were going to have to drive to a place and take back the next day, and they were going to charge us if we didn't rewind the damn thing. You know, Blockbuster, it could have ended up better for you. That's all I will say. Do yourself a favor and go watch the documentary, The Last Blockbuster. If you're interested, it's just a fantastic movie. It's full of nostalgia. It's got some big names in there that you might not expect. Kevin James makes an appearance. Kevin James. Kevin Smith. I'm getting my Kevins mixed up. One of them's got 2 first names, the other one doesn't. Kevin Smith from Jay and Silent Bob. He makes an appearance in the movie. The Last Blockbuster, trust me, go check it out. You'll laugh even harder at the fact that they turned down $50 billion and all lost their jobs years later. Okay, that wraps up episode 106 of the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Thank you all for being here today. As always, I'm going to tell you, podcast.liquidtrucking.com. That's where you find everything that encompasses this podcast. And you can also email me, podcast@liquidtrucking.com. We got some exciting stuff coming up here in the next few episodes. I'm really looking forward to it. Got a Christmas special coming up that we're planning some awesome things for. So stay tuned and be safe out there, Liquid drivers. Keep the shiny side up. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.
Interested in finding out more about what it takes to bring a podcast like the Liquid Trucking Podcast to your fleet? Bulldog provides tailor-made, top-to-bottom podcast production services. We'll meet your terminal staff, connect with your drivers, and bring you the content you want your drivers to hear. Type bulldog.works into your browser to connect with us and learn more about what we can do for your fleet. That's bulldog.works for podcasts, tenacious recruiting, and more.